Tristan.
Hello.
How are you?
Nice
We're
to meet you.
here at Spring Mountain racetrack, and we are in a warehouse where we had just went through the whole history of how this car was developed. And you were the lead designer for the interior.
Correct.
So, which is been a very interesting part because there's like so much going on in here, right?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, we really wanted to do an interior that felt really special and exotic, right? I mean, this car is 60 years in the making, right? There's a lot of expectations, and we had to make sure that not only we were up to the task of, you know, taking on those expectations, but going beyond it, right? I mean, we couldn't just meet. It had to be something where you got inside and it was unlike anything you were expecting. So,
yeah. So obviously, the first thing that everybody looks at it's this.
Yep.
This car is like, this is my car. You're here just invited.
Yep.
But this is me, right?
And that was, you know, that was very intentional. You know, we talked a lot to customers, not only to drive Corvettes, but everything from a lot of other exotic supercars, hypercars. And when you talk to them, you know, a lot of times you heard the same conversation. We'd ask them, you know, what's your typical driving? Are you with your spouse? Are you with your friend? And you hear a lot that it's like, no, they would like, this was their time for them to, you know, race around on the road and, you know, kind of breathe. This was their ultimate escapism, right? And so we started talking about, like, you know, let's really hone in on that driver and really create an interior that's completely designed around them and creating that jet cockpit, right? I mean, this is your jet cockpit here. And it wasn't that it was about, okay, well, we just throw the passenger aside. Because on the other side, then it became about, well, let's create this very comfortable, serene environment for the passenger. We actually have even more leg room than the previous car. We've got more cross-car space. And it was about creating this very simple, clean, seamless design here to kind of contrast what was going on in the driver's side.
This comes up almost like a wall, kind of, and like separates, but gives you your space, but
and at the same time, passenger, you know, nice thing is the way this strip worked out is, so from your point of view, your eye is going to go right to your controls here, but for me, it's much more, I just can sit and hit these guys, which are my controls down here. So I think even from a layout perspective, it still works from, you know, this is functionally, you know, good for me from the passenger side here. And again, then down here, there's no reason for me to be reaching down to the driver area here. So this is where this kind of functional grouping where you've got your shared HVAC strip here, you've got a shared infotainment screen, but this is really all driver controls. And again, that's why it was okay that we put these where they were at, because even in a car where you don't have this strip here, there's no reason they should be reaching into this area. Anyway. This is your controls.
So new technology, electronics, transmission by wire and all that, like allows you to do this very simplified, a very elegant design, right?
Yes, everything was trying to be very seamless. Even like you look at the air vents there, these are the thinnest in the production world right now. I think they're about 19 millimeters tall, and that was a brand new invention that we had to come up with, was how do we create these super thin, slim, clean air vents. It even led to, like, you know, even the way we adjust, you know, and control your airflow, you know, and direct it. That's a completely brand new invention that we took on when we did this car here. And we knew that, again, this goes back to delivering a new high-tech interior, right? It can't just be, we take the same parts and pieces from a normal car and put it in. Everything we had to rethink about and go after, how do we make this the most high-tech, sleek interior.
Let's talk about the steering wheel, square steering wheel. Like, you don't see many of those. I don't know, maybe none of them. Like,
we called it a squircle. It's not a square. It's not a circle. It's a squircle.
And again, like, very functional. There's not a lot going on, but you can control a lot of stuff from the car here, right? And like
absolutely. So the way, again, we kind of let the functionality drive the design, right? We didn't want to just style stuff just for the sake of styling. So it's all function driven. So, you know, if you think of a normal round steering wheel, it ends up actually clipping off quite a bit of your gauges in there. You know, you lose a lot of information. So even though you'll have this wide screen in a typical circle, you're just cutting all that information off. So we actually took and translated the shape of that display out, you imagine, right out to here, so it literally fits right within the wheel there, and that we kind of, again, allowed that to kind of shape and drive the design of the wheel. The other thing we did, we have quite a few designers, myself included, that do you know, we like track days and road course, and one of the designers actually had done quite a bit of racing, and he talked a lot about how when he's racing he likes to have a full grip around the steering wheel. So that's why we actually took and even angled these patterns. Normally they're angled, they're a lot more level straight out, and you kind of, when you're driving, you kind of straddle your thumb over that, and this now, by rotating them down, gives you a full grip around that wheel, and it was nice because it reveals more of that cluster. Again, you're getting a much more unobscured view to the cluster there. So,
and even though you know these are here, so you want to see them.
You got it. I think, you know, now that we don't have the manual transmission, the nice thing when you have a manual transmission car is you're seeing that movement in that engagement, right? It's that engagement with the machine that you're controlling. What's nice about this is now you're seeing more of that paddle. Those are real, aluminum or zinc paddles there. So you're seeing that movement happen. So we really like that as well, that again, you're getting that connection to the car through those paddles there.
And something that I have to be honest, and I don't know if you work in the previous generation, but the interior materials are like such a difference. Like honestly, in the past generations, the level of quality wasn't there. Even the smell wasn't there. So like, congratulations on that. Honestly.
No, thank you. And we talked a lot about that because if you remember before the C7, Corvette interior was kind of it always was kind of the big letdown on Corvettes, right? And so C7 I think was the first car that finally brought the interior where it was like, oh, okay, all right, this is a really good interior. Like to your point, there were still improvements that we could make and everything else, but it kind of was the first Corvette that finally kind of put the flag in there. I was like, this is how you do a good interior. But we wanted to go take it to the next level, right? So we talked a lot about when we first started design, no more plastic, like making sure we design areas where that nice rich material.
This is aluminum, this is leather, this
exactly.
is carbon fiber.
You're touching real stuff, but even you have to design around that. Like, so I always go back to the door pull cup area. This is a really good area where you touch this every time you get in and out of the car. And when you look at most manufacturers, they handle this area just by painted plastic. So we made sure that if you think of this as a box, you're always, the way the design works, the material just flows in. You're either touching real leather or real suede, and the other two sides are either real carbon fiber or real aluminum. So again, we're reinforcing that message of premium materials all the time. And that goes back to even the stuff that you can't touch. This perf metal up here, which is also a weight savings. It's a lighter weight material than a typical leather that would be if we would have just filled that with leather. That's real heavy, but that's real metal. And we knew that this was another area where if we would have just made that plastic, because the plastic would have, we would have only made the hole go down a couple millimeters, and you would have just seen it was a molded detail. You start ruining that message of real materials.
Yeah, one thing can ruin the rest, right?
You got it. And you see that perf metal when you're standing outside the car. So we talked a lot about it's not just about what you touch and your immediate, it's about the whole entire package and making sure you're reinforcing that message of authenticity all the time.
Yeah, here the knob for the modes, switching the modes is really good because you don't see much of it. But then like when you feel it, when the texture, the material.
So the whole reason behind the wrist pad too was when we were talking to customers that drove McLarens and Ferraris and cars that have moved away from a shifter. One of the things that we kept hearing time and time again was that they were missing having that place to kind of rest their hand. Like just it's a natural resting spot. We've gotten so used to it in cars, and that's probably that was their only complaint. So we talked about how do we kind of come up with a solution that gives you back that place to kind of rest your hand as you're just doing a cruise along. And it also beneficially, it comes back to where if I'm doing on the screen, I can also, it gives me that resting point, because a lot of times if you don't have this, you're floating your hand, which kind of gets tiresome. So here, it's nice you can sit there and just rest your hand right on that wrist pad, and it gives you that spot to kind of come back to when you're just doing a normal drive. So,
well, that's great. I really enjoyed talking to you and like learning how this was made, but this car is standing. I want to go out there.
That's why we do it.
Don't get insulted. I want to have it moving.
Yeah, oh yeah. So, yeah, same here. I want to get on the track too.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.